Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of Proxima Centauri Naval Base, staring at the message that had just arrived. The holographic display showed a creature that looked like something from humanity's worst nightmares. 9 feet tall, covered in thick armor plating that looked like it grew from its skin, 4 arms, each ending in clawed hands, eyes that burned with intelligence and cruelty. The message was simple and terrifying. The Jutharian Empire demanded that humanity abandon all colonies beyond the Sol system within 72 hours. If they refused, every human world would be destroyed. Every man, woman, and child would die. Vasquez had been a naval officer for 30 years. She had fought pirates in the Outer Rim and defended trade routes from raiders. But this was different. This was extinction. How many ships do they have? She asked her intelligence officer. Lieutenant Commander Park looked pale as he answered. Our scouts report over 300 vessels in the Volf 359 system. Dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, and support ships. Each of their smallest ships is bigger than our largest destroyer. Vasquez closed her eyes. The entire Terran Colonial Defense Force had maybe 50 ships, and most of those were frigates and patrol boats. They had been built to fight criminals and smugglers, not an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. What do we know about the Jutharians? She asked. They come from a high-gravity world called Kethmer. They evolved as pack hunters. Their society is built around conquest and domination. In the last 200 years, they have destroyed or enslaved 47 different species. They have never lost a major battle. The admiral walked to the viewing window that looked out at the small fleet docked at the station. 12 frigates, 8 destroyers, and 1 prototype that nobody really understood. The TCDF Defiant sat apart from the other ships, dark and imposing. At over 2 kilometers long, it was by far the largest ship humanity had ever built. Get me Captain Chun, Vasquez ordered. A few minutes later, Captain Sarah Chun appeared on the communication screen. She was young for a ship captain, maybe 35, with short black hair and steady brown eyes. She had been handpicked to command the Defiant because of her unconventional thinking and her ability to stay calm under pressure. Admiral, I assume this is about the Jutharian message, Chun said. Yes, I need to know what the Defiant can do. Real capabilities, not the official reports. Chun was quiet for a moment. The truth? We don't fully understand our own ship. The AI system is unlike anything we've built before. The weapons adapt and learn. The shields get stronger when they're hit, but we've never tested it in real combat. Could it fight a Jutharian fleet? Fight it? Maybe win against it? That's a different question. Vasquez made her decision. I'm calling an emergency meeting of all ship captains. We need to discuss our options. 2 hours later, 12 captains sat around the conference table. The mood was grim. Everyone had seen the intelligence reports. Everyone knew what humanity was facing. Captain Rodriguez of the destroyer Hamilton spoke first. We could evacuate as many civilians as possible and fall back to Earth, make our stand there, and give up 47 worlds without a fight? Captain Kim of the frigate Sol shook her head. That's not an option. Neither is fighting 300 ships with 50, Rodriguez replied. The argument continued for an hour. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to scatter the fleet and wage guerrilla warfare. A few suggested surrendering and hoping the Jutharians would be merciful. Chen had been quiet through most of the discussion. Finally, she spoke up. What if we don't fight them with 50 ships? Everyone turned to look at her. What do you mean? Vasquez asked. What if we fight them with 1 ship? The room erupted in protests. Captain Martinez of the cruiser Madrid stood up. That's suicide, Chun. Even the Defiant can't take on an entire fleet. Maybe not, Chun said calmly, but think about it. They're expecting us to gather our fleet and make a desperate last stand. They're preparing for conventional warfare. What they're not expecting is for 1 ship to meet them head-on. Because it's insane, Rodriguez said. Exactly. And that might be our only advantage. Vasquez studied Chun's face. You're serious about this? I am. The Defiant was built to be different from anything else in space. Its systems are designed To adapt and learn from combat. Maybe that's enough. And if it's not, Chun shrugged. Then we buy time for evacuations and go down fighting. But if we're going to die anyway, at least we do it on our terms. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the situation was hopeless. The Jutharians had superior numbers, superior technology, and centuries of military experience. But there was something appealing about Chun's plan. Instead of cowering and waiting for the end, humanity would strike first. What would you need? Vasquez asked. Just my ship and my crew, and permission to engage the enemy wherever and however I see fit. Vasquez looked around the table. One by one, the other captains nodded. They all knew it was probably a suicide mission, but it was better than the alternatives. Approved, the Admiral said. Captain Chain, you'll take the Defiant to Volf 359 and engage the Jutharian fleet. The rest of us will prepare defenses around Earth and the core worlds. As the meeting broke up, Chun stayed behind. Admiral, there's something else. The Defiant's AI system, Atlas, has been running simulations since we received the Jutharian message. It thinks there's a chance we can win. What kind of chance? 12%. But that's 12% more than we had this morning. Vasquez nodded. In their situation, 12% looked like good odds. Chun returned to her ship and called a meeting of her senior officers. The Defiant's crew was just over 1,200 people, the best and brightest humanity had to offer. Engineers, who had built impossible machines. Tacticians who had studied every battle in human history. Scientists who understood technologies that most people couldn't even pronounce. I won't lie to you, Chun told them as they gathered in the main briefing room. We're about to attempt something that has never been tried before. One ship against an entire fleet. The odds are heavily against us. She paused and looked at each face in the room. Some looked scared, others looked determined, all of them looked ready. But I believe we can do this. Not because we're stronger than the Jutharians, but because we're different. They think in terms of overwhelming force and brutal efficiency. We think in terms of adaptation and innovation. They expect us to fight like they do. Instead, we're going to fight like humans. Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez raised his hand. Captain, what if the experimental systems fail? We've never pushed Atlas to full combat capacity. Then we improvise. That's what humans do best. Weapons. Officer Lieutenant Sarah Kim spoke up. What's our primary objective? Destroy their fleet or send a message? Chun smiled grimly. Both. We're going to show the Jutharians that humanity won't go quietly into extinction. And if we're lucky, we might just send enough of them home that they think twice about their ultimatum. The preparations took 18 hours. The Defiant's experimental systems were checked and rechecked. The AI collective Atlas ran thousands of combat simulations. The crew drilled on emergency procedures and combat protocols. As the ship prepared to depart, Chun stood on the bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 300 enemy ships waited. Ships that had conquered worlds and destroyed civilizations. Ships that considered humanity to be nothing more than an obstacle to be removed. Navigation, set course for Volf 359, she ordered. Course set, Captain, came the reply. Engineering, bring all systems online. All systems ready. Captain, Chun took a deep breath. Take us out. The Defiant slowly moved away from Proxima Centauri Naval Base. Behind them, the rest of humanity's fleet prepared for what might be the last battle of their species. Ahead of them lay the unknown. As they jumped to hyperspace, Chun whispered. A prayer to whatever gods might be listening? Not for victory, because that seemed impossible, but for the chance to prove that humanity deserved to exist among the stars. The journey to Volf 359 would take 36 hours, 36 hours too. Prepare for a battle that would determine the fate of every human in the galaxy. The war was about to begin. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Defiant as they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Volf 359 system. What she saw on the main screen made her stomach drop. The tactical display showed over 300 red dots arranged in perfect formation around the system's star. My God, whispered Navigation Officer Peters. There are so many of them. Chin had seen the intelligence reports, but seeing the Jetherian fleet with her own eyes was different. The enemy ships hung in space like dark predators, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built except for the Defiant itself. The smallest Jetherian destroyer was twice the size of Earth's largest cruiser. Sensors, give me detailed scans. Chin ordered. Lieutenant Commander Walsh worked at her station, her fingers flying over the controls. Captain, I'm reading 312 vessels. 47 dreadnoughts, each one over 3 kilometers long, 86 battle cruisers. The rest are destroyers and support ships. Shun felt her crew's fear like a physical presence on the bridge. She couldn't blame them. They were outnumbered more than 300 to 1 by ships that had never known defeat. Captain, Walsh continued, I'm also detecting energy signatures from their weapons. They're not just here to accept surrender. Those ships are armed and ready for battle. Chief Tactical Officer Kim looked up from her console. Captain, if they deployed that much firepower, they're planning to destroy every human world simultaneously. This isn't about conquest. This is about extermination. Chun nodded grimly. The Jetherians weren't taking any chances. They wanted to send a message to the galaxy that challenging their empire meant total annihilation. Atlas, what's your analysis? Chun asked the ship's AI. The artificial intelligence's voice filled the bridge, calm and precise. Based on sensor data, the enemy fleet possesses overwhelming superiority in numbers and raw firepower. However, their formation indicates they are prepared for conventional fleet engagement. They are not expecting unorthodox tactics. Options? Multiple scenarios calculated. Highest probability of mission success involves engaging the enemy in phases, using their formation against them. Recommended strategy: provoke limited response to test enemy capabilities and adaptation speed. Shun looked around her bridge crew. These were the best officers humanity had to offer, but they looked terrified. She couldn't blame them. What they were about to attempt was either the bravest or stupidest thing in military history. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship's communication system. We have visual contact with the enemy fleet. I know what you're thinking. I know how impossible this looks. But remember why we're here? We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who ever looked up at the stars and dreamed of something better. She paused, choosing her words carefully. The Jetherians think we're weak because we're smaller than them. They think we're helpless because we're outnumbered. They're about to learn that humans don't give up. We adapt. We overcome. We survive. All stations prepare for combat. On the enemy flagship, War Prime Kethrix studied the single human vessel that had just appeared on his sensors. The Jetherian commander was massive even by his species' standards, standing 10 feet tall with 4 arms that ended in razor-sharp claws. His chitinous armor was decorated with the bones of enemies he had personally killed. War Prime, his tactical officer reported. A single human vessel has entered the system. It appears to be their largest ship, but it is alone. Kethrix examined the tactical display with interest. In 3 centuries of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. A single ship approaching an entire fleet was either the work of a madman or someone with a plan he couldn't understand. Interesting, he rumbled in his deep voice. Open a communication channel to the human vessel. The main screen on the Defiant flickered to life, showing the alien commander. Joan's crew gasped at the sight of the creature. Kethrix looked like something out of a nightmare, but his eyes showed intelligence and cunning. Human captain, Kethrix spoke in accented but clear English. I am War Prime Kethrix of the Jetherian Empire. You have arrived to witness the end of your species. I offer you one final chance. Surrender now, and your crew will be granted an honorable death. Chun stepped forward so the alien could see her clearly. This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Terran battleship Defiant. We have received your ultimatum, and we have our answer. She paused for effect, knowing that her next words would be transmitted across the galaxy. Come and take them. Kethrix's 4 eyes narrowed. In Githerian culture, such defiance from an inferior species was unthinkable. But there was something in the human's voice that gave him pause. She didn't sound afraid. She sounded determined. Very well, human. You have chosen? Death. I will grant it to you quickly, the communication ended. Kethrix turned to his tactical officer. Send 50 ships to destroy the human vessel. Make it quick and clean. I want the rest of the galaxy to see what happens to those who defy the Empire. 50 Githerian ships broke formation and accelerated toward the Defiant. Each one was larger than the human battleship, and together they carried enough firepower to destroy a small planet. Incoming ships, Walsh reported. 50 vessels, moving to attack formation. Atlas, are you ready? Chun asked. All systems optimal, Captain. Initiating adaptive protocols. Chun felt a strange calm settle over her. This was it. The moment that would determine whether humanity lived or died. All weapons prepare to fire, shields to maximum. Engineering, I want every system pushed to the limit. The 50 Githerian. Ships opened fire simultaneously. Beams of energy that could melt steel struck the Defiant's shields. The ship shook under the impact, but something unexpected happened. Instead of weakening, the shields seemed to grow brighter and stronger. Captain. Chief Engineer Rodriguez called from the engine room. The adaptive shields are working better than we hoped. They're not just absorbing the energy, they're using it to strengthen the barrier. Atlas, fire when ready. The Defiant's weapons came alive, but these weren't ordinary ship-to-ship weapons. As Atlas analyzed each enemy vessel, the targeting systems adapted. Finding weak points in armor and exploiting gaps in their formation, the first Githerian ship exploded in a ball of fire. Then the second, then the third. Impossible, whispered the Githerian tactical officer as he watched his ships die. Their weapons are adapting to our defenses in real time. The battle lasted only minutes. When it was over, all 50 Githerian ships were destroyed or disabled. The Defiant hung in space, its shields glowing with absorbed energy, almost completely undamaged. The Githerian fleet was silent. In 300 years of conquest, they had never seen anything like what just happened. 50 of their best ships destroyed by a single enemy vessel. Kethrix stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human ship had not just survived his attack, it had won decisively. More troubling, it had used tactics he didn't understand. The way their weapons learned and adapted was unlike anything in Githerian experience. War Prime, his tactical officer said quietly. What are your orders? Kethrix studied the lone human ship. It sat motionless in space as if waiting for his next move. The human captain had not tried to escape or call for reinforcements. She was challenging him to send more ships. Analysis, he ordered. How did they do this? Unknown, War Prime. Their shields appeared to strengthen under fire, and their weapons showed learning behavior. Our ship's armor became less effective as the battle progressed. For the first time in his military career, Kethrix felt something he hadn't experienced since he was a young warrior: uncertainty. The humans had technology that defied his understanding on the Defiant's bridge. Chun watched the enemy fleet's reaction with satisfaction. The Githerians had expected an easy victory. Instead, they had learned that humans were full of surprises. Atlas, damage report. Hull integrity at 97%. Shield generators operating at 112% of normal. Capacity, all weapon systems optimal and continuing to learn from combat data. Chun smiled. The first phase of her plan had worked perfectly. The Githerians now knew that the Defiant was no ordinary ship. They would be more cautious, more thoughtful in their next attack, and that would give her more opportunities to surprise them. Captain, Kim reported, the enemy fleet is repositioning. It looks like they're preparing for a larger assault. How many ships? At least 200, maybe more, Chun nodded. The real battle was about to begin, but for the first time since receiving the Githerian ultimatum, she felt something she hadn't dared to hope for. She felt like they might actually have a chance. War Prime Kethrix paced the bridge of his flagship, his forearms clasped behind his back. The destruction of 50 ships by a single human vessel had shaken him more than he cared to admit. In 3 centuries of conquest, the Jutherian Empire had never faced an enemy that could adapt so quickly. "Intelligence analysis complete, War Prime," reported his tactical officer. "The human vessel appears to use learning technology. Their weapons become more accurate with each shot fired. Their shields grow stronger when attacked." Ketherick stopped pacing and stared at the tactical display. The lone human ship sat motionless in space, as if mocking his entire fleet. The arrogance was insulting, but he had to admit it was also effective. The humans had made him doubt himself. "Prepare 200 ships for coordinated assault," he ordered. "Full battle formation. Maximum firepower. If their technology learns from combat, we will overwhelm it with more information than it can process." His tactical officer hesitated. "War Prime, perhaps we should study their capabilities further before committing so many ships." Ketherick's turned, his burning gaze on the younger Jutherian. "Are you questioning my judgment? No, War Prime, preparing assault formation now." As the Jutherian fleet reorganized, Captain Chun watched their movements with interest. The enemy was being more careful now, taking time to position their ships properly. That was exactly what she had hoped for. Atlas, analysis of enemy formation. Enemy ships arranged in standard Jutherian attack pattern 7. Formation designed for overwhelming firepower concentration. Weakness: predictable movement patterns and communication lag between outer and inner ship groups. Chun nodded. The Jutherians were powerful, but they were also rigid in their thinking. They had used the same tactics for centuries because those tactics always worked. Now she would show them why adaptation was more valuable than tradition. "Chief. Engineer Rodriguez, I need you to prepare the quantum phase system." Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system, sounding worried. "Captain, we've never tested that system in combat. The theoretical models show it might work, but if we're wrong, it could tear the ship apart. And if we don't try something? Desperate, we'll be destroyed by conventional weapons. Begin preparations." Shun turned to her tactical officer. "Kim, I want you to prepare firing solutions for the asteroid field near the system's edge. Can we use the gravitational effects to our advantage?" Lieutenant Kim worked at her console for several minutes. "Captain, if we position ourselves correctly, we could use the asteroids as cover and create a crossfire effect. But it would require precise timing and some very dangerous maneuvers. Atlas, can you calculate the required flight path?" "Calculating optimal route through asteroid field. Warning: margin for error is less than 2%. Recommendation: proceed with extreme caution." Chun smiled grimly. 2% margin for error was better odds than facing 200 ships in open space. Navigation: prepare for asteroid field entry. All hands secure for extreme maneuvers. The Defiant began moving toward the edge of the system, where millions of rocks and ice chunks orbited in a chaotic dance. The Jutherian fleet followed, maintaining their perfect formation. Ketherick watched the human ship's movement with growing confusion. Why are they moving toward the asteroid field? Are they trying to escape? Unknown, War Prime. Their course will take them into dense asteroid concentration. Our ships will have difficulty maintaining formation in that environment. Then we attack before they reach it. All ships, maximum acceleration. Destroy that vessel now. 200 Jutherian ships surged forward, their weapons charging. But the Defiant was already entering the asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks with impossible precision. "Atlas is guiding us through," Navigation Officer Peters reported, his voice tight with concentration. "Computer reflexes are the only thing keeping us from becoming part of the asteroid belt." The first Jutherian ships reached the edge of the asteroid field and opened fire. Their energy beams struck rocks instead of their target, creating spectacular explosions that sent debris flying in all directions. "Now," Chin ordered. The Defiant suddenly reversed course, using a large asteroid as a pivot point. The maneuver was impossible for any human pilot, but Atlas calculated every angle perfectly. The ship emerged from behind the asteroid with all weapons firing. The lead Jetherian ships, caught off guard by the sudden reversal, took devastating hits. Their formation, perfect for open space combat, became a liability in the chaotic environment of the asteroid field. "Impossible," Ketherick snarled as he watched his ships struggle to adapt. "How are they navigating so precisely?" The battle became a deadly game of hide and seek among the asteroids. The Defiant would appear suddenly, destroy several enemy ships, then vanish behind another rock before the Jetherians could respond effectively, but Chun had more surprises prepared. "Kim, execute Plan Gamma." The Defiant's weapons began targeting specific asteroids, not the enemy ships. The tactical officer understood immediately and began calculating impact trajectories. "Captain, this is brilliant," Kim said as she worked. "We're turning the asteroids into weapons." Atlas fired precisely. Calculated shots at strategic asteroids, sending them tumbling toward the Jetherian formation. The enemy pilots, focused on hunting the human ship, didn't notice the incoming rocks until it was too late. Massive asteroids, some as large as city blocks, smashed into Jetherian vessels. The aliens' superior armor was useless against millions of tons of stone and ice moving at tremendous speed. "War Prime," the tactical officer reported. "We've lost 47 ships to asteroid impacts. The humans are using the environment against us." Kethrix felt something he had never experienced before: tactical confusion. The humans weren't fighting like any enemy he had ever faced. Instead of meeting strength with strength, they were using intelligence and creativity. "Pull back to clear space," he ordered. "Reform and attack from maximum range." But as the Jetherian ships tried to withdraw, the Defiant revealed another surprise. The ship suddenly accelerated directly toward the largest group of enemy vessels, all weapons firing. "They're attacking us head-on," the tactical officer reported. "Are they trying to ram us?" At the last second, the Defiant fired its experimental quantum phase drive. The ship flickered and became translucent, passing through the Jetherian formation like a ghost. As it rematerialized on the other side, its weapons fired at point-blank range into the enemy ship's engines. 12 Jetherian vessels exploded in as many seconds. "What just happened?" Kethrix demanded. "Unknown technology, War Prime. They appeared to phase out of normal space temporarily." The War Prime stared at the tactical display in growing amazement. The humans had just demonstrated 3 different technologies that the Jetherian Empire had never encountered: adaptive shields, learning weapon systems, and now some kind of phasing drive. But it was more than just technology. It was the way they used it. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. They turned weaknesses into strengths, used the environment as a weapon, and employed tactics that seemed to come from pure creativity rather than military doctrine. As the battle continued, the Defiant's performance seemed to improve. Atlas was learning from every exchange, every maneuver, every shot fired. The ship's movements became more fluid, its weapons more accurate, its tactics more unpredictable. "Captain," Chief Engineer Rodriguez reported, "all systems are operating above normal parameters. Atlas is integrating combat data faster than we projected. We're actually getting stronger as the fight continues." Chun watched as another group of Jetherian ships fell to a coordinated attack that used asteroid gravity to bend weapon beams around cover. The enemy was still vastly superior in numbers, but their advantage was shrinking with every passing minute. ATLAS, enemy fleet status. Jetherian forces reduced to 163 operational vessels. Enemy adaptation rate significantly slower than our learning curve. Probability of mission success has increased to 28%. June felt a surge of hope. 28% was still long odds, but it was better than the 12% they had started with. More importantly, she could see the effect the battle was having on the Jetherian fleet. Their perfect formations were breaking down. Their coordinated attacks were becoming hesitant and uncertain. For the first time in their history, the mighty Jetherian Empire was learning what it felt like to be outfought by a supposedly inferior enemy, War Prime. Kethrix watched his fleet's strength diminish with growing disbelief. The single human ship had now destroyed nearly half of his attack force, and it showed no signs of slowing down. More troubling, his remaining ships were beginning to show signs of fear, emotion that Jutherian warriors were supposed to have bred out of themselves centuries ago. War Prime, his tactical officer said quietly, the fleet is requesting new orders. The standard attack patterns are not effective against this enemy. Kethrix looked at the lone human ship, still dancing among the asteroids, still fighting against impossible odds. He was beginning to understand why the humans had sent only one vessel. They hadn't sent their strongest ship. They had sent their smartest one. And for the first time in his long military career, Kethrix wasn't sure he was smart enough to defeat it. War Prime Kethrix stood alone in his command chamber, staring at the tactical display that showed his fleet's diminishing numbers. 112 ships remained from the 300 he had started with. A single human vessel had accomplished what no enemy in Jutherian history had ever managed to do. His pride as a warrior demanded that he continue the fight. His duty as a military commander told him to retreat and request reinforcements. But something deeper, something he couldn't name, made him want to understand how the humans had achieved the impossible. War Prime, his tactical officer interrupted his thoughts. The remaining fleet commanders are requesting orders. Some suggest we withdraw and call for additional forces. Kethrix's 4 eyes burned with anger. Retreat the Jutherian Empire? Does not retreat from inferior species. Of course not, War Prime, but this enemy is unlike anything we have faced before. Perhaps tactical withdrawal would allow us to study their capabilities and develop countermeasures. No, we end this here. And now, order all remaining ships to form sphere formation around the human vessel. Every ship fire simultaneously. We will overwhelm their adaptive systems with more firepower than they can possibly handle. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Chun watched the enemy fleet's final repositioning with grim satisfaction. The Jutherians were about to throw everything they had left at her ship. It would be the ultimate test of human ingenuity versus alien brute force. Atlas, analysis of enemy formation. Enemy vessels arranging in complete encirclement. Estimated firepower. Concentration will exceed our defensive capabilities by factor of 12. Recommendation, immediate evasive action. Chun shook her head. No running this time. We've proven we can outfight them. Now we need to prove we can survive anything they can throw at us. Chief Engineer Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system, tight with worry. Captain, our shields have adapted amazingly well, but this level of concentrated fire will overload every system we have. The ship won't survive it. What about the quantum core overload you mentioned earlier? That's still theoretical suicide. Captain, we could phase the ship out of normal space, but the stress might tear us apart on a molecular level. Chun looked around her bridge crew. They had followed her this far, trusting her judgment through impossible odds. Now she was asking them to trust her with their lives on a plan that might kill them all. If we don't try it, we're dead anyway. Begin preparations for quantum core overload. But Rodriguez, I want a controlled overload, not an explosion. Can, you do that? I can try, Captain. But I'll need precise timing. If we phase out too early, we miss our chance. Too late, and we're vaporized. ATLAS, can you calculate the optimal timing? Calculating. Multiple variables involved. Margin for error, less than 1%. Proceeding with preparations. The Jutherian ships completed their encirclement. 87 vessels formed a perfect sphere around the Defiant, their weapons charged and ready. Each ship was positioned so that the human vessel could not escape without passing through concentrated fire from multiple directions. Target acquired, reported the Jutherian tactical officer. All ships report ready to fire. Kethrix studied the display one final time. The human ship hung motionless in the center of his formation, completely surrounded. There was no escape, no clever maneuver that could save them this time. Fire. The space around the Defiant erupted in a hell of energy beams and plasma bolts. 87 ships unleashed their full firepower simultaneously, creating a storm of destruction that could have cracked a moon. The human ship vanished in a blinding ball of energy that lit up the entire system. For 30 seconds, the bombardment continued. When it finally stopped, the Jetherian fleet waited for the energy clouds to clear, expecting to see nothing but debris. Instead, they saw the impossible. The Defiant hung in space exactly where it had been, its adaptive shields glowing like a miniature star. The ship was damaged, with hull plating buckled and secondary explosions visible along its length, but it was intact. "Impossible," whispered the Jetherian tactical officer. No ship could survive that level of concentrated fire. But even as he spoke, warning alarms began sounding throughout the Jetherian fleet. The Defiant's shields weren't just holding, they were growing brighter and stronger. All that absorbed energy was being converted into defensive power. "Captain," Rodriguez called from engineering, "the shields are holding, but barely. Hull stress is at critical levels. We can't take another bombardment like that." "We won't have to," Chun replied, watching her tactical display. "Kim, are you ready with the quantum phase maneuver?" "As ready as we can be for something that's never been tested." "Atlas, initiate quantum core overload. Prepare for dimensional phase." Deep in the Defiant's engine room, exotic matter began to behave in ways that challenged the basic laws of physics. The quantum core, normally stable and contained, was deliberately pushed beyond safe operating parameters. "Core overload in progress," Atlas reported. "Phase transition in 10 seconds. Chun opened a communication channel to the Jetherian fleet. War Prime Kethrix's face appeared on her screen, his 4 eyes wide with something she had never expected to see from a Jetherian warrior: uncertainty. "War Prime Kethrix," she said calmly. "You've thrown everything you have at us. Your turn is over. Now it's ours. What are you?" Kethrix asked, and for the first time his voice showed something other than arrogance. "We're human," Chun replied simply. "We adapt, we overcome, we survive." "Phase transition in 3 seconds, Atlas announced. The Defiant began to shimmer and fade, becoming translucent like a ghost ship. The quantum core overload was tearing holes in space-time itself, allowing the vessel to slip between dimensions. 2 seconds. The Jetherian ships opened fire again, but their energy beams passed harmlessly through the phasing vessel. 1 second. The Defiant vanished completely from normal space. For a moment, the Jetherian fleet hung motionless, unsure of what had happened. Their sensors showed nothing. The human ship had simply ceased to exist. Then reality exploded around them. The Defiant rematerialized inside their formation, all weapons charged and firing. But this wasn't the same ship that had vanished seconds before. The quantum phase had somehow enhanced every system. The weapons fired faster and hit harder. The ship moved with impossible speed and precision. In the space of 30 seconds, 40 Jetherian ships were destroyed. The aliens' perfect sphere formation became a death trap. As the human vessel tore through their ranks like an avenging angel. "Scatter formation," Kethrix ordered desperately. All ships, evasive maneuvers, but it was too late. The Defiant was no longer fighting a defensive battle. It had become the hunter, and the Jetherians had become the prey. Atlas had used the quantum phase to process vast amounts of combat data simultaneously. The AI now understood every weakness in Jetherian ship design, every flaw in their tactical doctrine, every pattern in their behavior. The remaining enemy ships tried to flee, but the Defiant was faster. It appeared wherever the Jetherians least expected it, striking with surgical precision before vanishing again. Within minutes, only a dozen enemy vessels remained. Then 6, then 3. Finally, only War Prime Kethrix's flagship survived, hanging alone in space like a wounded beast. Chun opened the communication channel again. This time, when Kethrix appeared on screen, she saw something in his eyes that she recognized. It wasn't fear or anger or hatred. It was respect. "War Prime," she said, "your fleet is destroyed, your invasion is over. But you fought with honor. And you showed courage in the face of the impossible. I respect that." Kethrix was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, thoughtful rather than arrogant. Captain Chun, I have conquered 47 species in my lifetime. I have destroyed civilizations and enslaved entire worlds, but I have never encountered an enemy. Like you, we're not your enemy unless you make us one, Chun replied. Humanity doesn't seek conquest or domination. We just want the right to exist among the stars. And you have proven that right in combat, Ketherick said slowly. By the ancient laws of my people, might makes right. You have shown might beyond our understanding. The Jetherian commander was silent again, staring at the human captain who had accomplished the impossible. One ship against a fleet, one species standing up to an empire. One moment that would change the galaxy forever. What happens now? He asked. Chun smiled, and for the first time since the battle began, it was a genuine expression of hope rather than grim determination. Now we talk? War Prime Ketherick stared at the tactical display showing the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. 300 ships had become one. The greatest armada in Jetherian history had been destroyed by a single human vessel. The mathematics of the situation defied everything he understood about warfare. War Prime, his communications officer said quietly. The human captain is requesting permission to come aboard our ship. Ketherick's 4 eyes narrowed. She wants to board our flagship? Why? Unknown, War Prime. She says she wishes to speak. With you in person? About the future? For a moment, Ketherick considered ordering his remaining weapons to fire on the human ship. His warrior pride demanded that he fight to the death rather than submit to a lesser species, but something stopped him. The human captain had shown him respect even in victory. She had called him honorable. No enemy had ever done that before. Grunt. Permission, he said finally. But maintain full security protocols. 20 minutes later, Captain Sarah Chun materialized in the Jetherian flagship's transport bay, accompanied by 4 of her officers. Ketherick had expected humans to be small and weak, but seeing them in person surprised him. They moved with confidence. Despite being surrounded by creatures twice their size, Chun stepped forward and looked up at the towering Jetherian commander. War Prime Ketherick, thank you for agreeing to meet with us. You destroyed my fleet, Ketherick said bluntly. Why do you now seek conversation instead of demanding surrender? Because surrender isn't what we want, Chun replied. Humanity has never sought to conquer other species. We fight only when we must to protect what we've built and the people we love. Ketherick led the humans to his command chamber, a vast room decorated with the weapons and trophies of 100 conquered worlds. Chun looked around with interest but showed no fear, despite being surrounded by reminders of Jetherian military might. Explain to me how you did this, Ketherick said, gesturing toward the tactical display showing his fleet's destruction. My ships were superior in every way. My warriors have never known defeat, yet you prevailed with a single vessel. Chun sat down across from the alien commander, her officers flanking her. You're right that your ships were more powerful. Your weapons were stronger. Your armor was thicker. But you made one critical mistake. Which was? You assumed that superior technology and overwhelming numbers would guarantee victory. You fought the same way your people have fought for centuries, using the same tactics that have always worked. Before, Ketherick leaned forward, his massive frame dwarfing the human captain. And how do humans fight? We adapt, Chun said simply. Every challenge teaches us something new. Every battle makes us stronger. Your people built an empire on the idea that the strong naturally dominate the weak. But you never considered that strength comes in many different forms. Chun activated a small holographic projector that showed the battle from the Defiance. Perspective. Look at how we used your own formation against you. How we turned the asteroid field into a weapon. How we made our supposed weakness into an advantage. Ketherick watched the replay with growing understanding. The humans hadn't won through superior firepower or advanced technology alone. They had won through creativity, adaptability, and the ability to see possibilities where others saw only limitations. Your artificial intelligence, he said, It learned from our attacks and used that knowledge against us. ATLAS is just a tool, Chun explained. The real advantage was our willingness to try new things, to take risks, to think beyond traditional military doctrine. Your warriors are brave and skilled, but they've been trained to follow established patterns. We've been trained to break them. For the first time in his long military career, Ketherix felt something he had never experienced before, intellectual curiosity about an enemy's methods. Why are you telling me this? You could have simply destroyed my ship and declared victory. Chun's expression grew serious. Because victory isn't our goal. Survival is. Humanity wants to exist peacefully among the stars, but we'll fight anyone who tries to destroy us. The question is, does this have to be a war of extermination, or can it be something else? What do you propose? A different kind of relationship. Not conqueror and conquered, but equals. Partners, maybe even allies. Ketherix's laugh was like the sound of grinding stone. Allies? You have destroyed my fleet and humiliated the Jutharian Empire? My people will demand revenge, will they? Chun asked calmly. Or will they recognize that we've proven something important here today? She stood up and walked to the chamber's viewing window, looking out at the debris field that had once been the pride of the Jutharian Navy. Your empire has spent centuries conquering weaker species. But what happens when you encounter someone who isn't weaker? Someone who can match your strength and exceed your adaptability? Ketherix joined her at the window. You believe other species will follow your example? I think other species have been waiting for someone to prove that the Jutharian Empire isn't invincible. Today, we proved it. Tomorrow, others will remember that proof. The alien commander was silent for several minutes, processing implications that reached far beyond this single battle. If the humans were right, the galaxy was about to change in ways he couldn't predict. What would this partnership look like? He asked finally. Chun turned to face him. Combine your military strength with our adaptability, your resources with our innovation, your experience with our fresh perspectives. Think about what we could accomplish together instead of what we can destroy separately. And if I refuse? If I choose to call for reinforcements and continue this war, then we'll fight, Chun said without hesitation. And we'll win. Not because we're stronger, but because we'll never stop learning and growing while you repeat the same patterns that failed here today. Ketherix looked at the human captain with new eyes. She wasn't boasting or threatening. She was simply stating facts. The battle had proven that human adaptability could overcome Jutharian superiority. A larger war would only give the humans more opportunities to learn and improve. You would trust us as allies after we came here to destroy your species? Trust has to start somewhere, Chun replied. And it usually starts with mutual respect. You've shown courage and honor in defeat. We've shown that we can defend ourselves without seeking conquest. That's a foundation we can build on. 6 months later, the joint human-Jutharian fleet hung in formation above a world called Nexus Prime. The planet was under attack by the Void Collective, a machine intelligence that had already consumed 12 star systems. Captain Chun, now Admiral Chun, stood on the bridge of the Defiant alongside War Prime Ketherix. The alien commander had become her closest advisor, bringing centuries of military experience to complement human innovation. Enemy fleet consists of 400 automated vessels, Ketherix reported. Standard collective configuration. They will attack in waves, learning from each engagement. Chun smiled. Then they're in for a surprise. Atlas, begin integration with Jutharian tactical networks. Integration complete, the AI responded. Combined fleet analysis shows significant tactical advantages. Jutharian firepower combined with human adaptability creates optimal combat configuration. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Jutharian strength and human creativity merged into something greater than either could achieve alone. The Void Collective's machine learning was impressive, but it couldn't match the combined intelligence of two species working together. When the last enemy ship was destroyed, Chun and Ketherix stood together on the observation deck, watching relief. Ships arrived to help the planet below. The other species are watching, Ketherick said. Word of our alliance has spread throughout the galaxy. Good, Chun replied. Maybe they'll realize that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Over the following year, 17 different species approached the human-Getherian alliance, seeking partnership rather than domination. The galaxy was slowly transforming from a collection of empires built on fear into a community of worlds. Based on mutual benefit, the Defiant had become the symbol of this new era. Not as a weapon of war, but as proof that the impossible was possible when different minds worked together. The ship's adaptive technology had been shared with allied species, creating a new generation of vessels that grew stronger through cooperation. Rather than conflict. Admiral Chun often thought about that moment when she had faced 300 enemy ships with only one vessel and impossible odds. She had expected to die that day, but instead had helped birth a new kind of galactic civilization. The age of conquest was ending. The age of adaptation was beginning. And at the center of it all, one human battleship had changed everything by proving that sometimes the greatest victory came not from destroying your enemies, but from transforming them into friends. In the vast darkness of space, no species had to stand alone anymore. They had learned to stand together, and that made all the difference.